we met a few times in person, and I just said, can I please interview you? Can I just pick your brain? Can you share with our following on Invest in Your Child? Because she is an expert and a coach for entrepreneurs, and she especially helps entrepreneurs and people who have ADD. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be great to get some tips for parents to, help us with our kids who have ADD. And so she is here. Her name is Kit Cassingham. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Holly. I'm very excited about today's podcast.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And so she's going to share with us 5 tips for parents to help your child with ADD. So before we get started, just tell me really shortly, how did you get into this? How did you become a coach to helping people with ADD?
Well, I've been a coach for 20 years now, and a year and a half ago, I recognized through some help with my therapist that my husband's ADD was tripping us up. So I bought some books on how to be a partner to someone with ADD. And in the process of learning how to deal with his ADD, I realized I have ADD also.
Wow.
It was interesting through my learning process to figure out, where did it come from? Because of course it was not talked about when I was growing up. And what I've realized is my mother had ADD, and it was really not talked about when she was a kid. But she figured out how to manage her own ADD and helped, and consequently I didn't know I had ADD till a year and a half ago.
Wow.
Because her trick was to structure life. And when I met my husband, my structure fell apart because I wanted to mesh with his real easygoing lifestyle. And it was only recently, a year and a half ago, that I realized it was the lack of structure that had me fall apart for a while.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And thank you for sharing your story, your epiphanies, things that you're learning. Let's go right into it. So what is your first tip for the parents on investing in your child?
Well, the first tip is, it came from our first conversation. Well, the conversation we had last week, which is, you said, I've studied ADHD, but I don't know anything about ADD.
Yeah.
In my terminology, in my way of thinking, they're the same thing. H stands for hyperactivity.
Okay.
Hyperactivity is probably present in everybody with ADD. Some ADDers, which is my term, are hyperactive physically. Those are the children who can't sit still. They're always tapping, twiddling, playing with their hair, whatever. But some ADDers, their brains are hyperactive, never stop, always going. I've even heard ADDers say, I always have music running in my head. Wow. Which is hyperactivity in my book. Mm-hmm. And when you look at some of the theories of what's the difference between ADDers or the neuroatypical types, mm-hmm. and non-ADDers, the neurotypical types, you go back to beginning of mankind when everybody was a hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
Some people specialized in going out into the wild to catch the mastodon, or they're running from the saber-toothed tiger. And of course, we know that that's not quite true, but they could be looking for prey or avoiding being prey. They're looking for nuts and seeds and berries and leaves. There are people who will stay at camp and process the foods and the leathers and the things that come in. But everybody's always on the alert. They're always scanning the horizon, always active.
Yeah. With
evolution of man came cities and people staying home. The farmers tending to crops. The farmer is the person who doesn't have to worry about what's on the horizon or becoming prey. And they do repetitive tasks very well. They plant the seeds, they water the seeds, they weed around and process all of that, cook the food. Then comes the Industrial Revolution. The farmer type fit into the Industrial Revolution very well, and school systems were designed to create people for the Industrial Revolution, to be office workers, factory workers. but there's still that hunter-gatherer mentality of needing to be active. That's the ADDer. So the trick for parents is to pay attention to, does your kid need to be active, or are they perfectly content doing repetitive, structured things?
Mm-hmm.
And ADD is a spectrum, so there's all kinds of activities. You can't just say, well, all ADDers are like this. My child has to fit this mold. If your child is active, let them be active, because they can do amazing things with that activity.
Awesome. Awesome. So if I understood correctly, your first tip would be, remember that ADHD or ADD, there's a big spectrum, right? And so that hyperactivity could be very visual, or it could just be in their head. And so keep that in mind and figure that out, you know, ask questions and find out, is there a song always playing, or what are they always thinking about, so that so the parents can know what need they need to fulfill. And if that child needs to run around, like you said, and be active, then let them be active so that they can reach their full potential. Does that sound about right? Is there anything else you want to add to that first tip?
I think that is a good summary. And
Okay.
one other tip from that is,
Mm-hmm.
if the child is having trouble focusing, like reading or doing math, if the child has ADD, get them up and running. You know, run around the block, jump on the trampoline, do something active to burn off some of that excess energy, and that will help them focus. Because
Awesome.
everybody needs to focus at some point. Some people do it naturally well, and others have to fight to get it.
Awesome. Good to know. All right. We've got our second tip for us.
Second tip is pay attention to building good health. Now, that seems like an obvious thing that parents would do that for their children, right?
Yeah.
But we don't always know what's right. For ADD kids, the first thing is move. They have to exercise, run, and play. As I said earlier, that helps their focus.
Yeah.
A whole food, natural diet is really important for everybody, but especially for ADDers. No sugar, no artificial colors or flavors, and no natural flavors, because natural flavors actually have some unnatural things built into them. And all of that activates the parts of the brain that cause the restlessness, the impulsiveness, the distractibility are the key traits of ADDers. And I have a long list of other traits we can go into if we have time.
Okay, awesome.
Also, ADD children need to have a good night's sleep. So that's where my mom's structure came in. I got to work my way up to going to bed at 7:30. I don't know how old I was when I could go to bed that late.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing lots of parents now letting their kids stay up at all hours of the day. And part of me is so jealous, like, I didn't get to do that. But that was part of my structure. My structure was, we got up at 6. Some of us played the piano, did our piano practice, and we all did different things. But we had breakfast. We went to school, which was structured. We came home, and we had a certain period of time we could play, but we also had to get our homework done. And then we had dinner, and then we went to bed at some early time. That was my structure, and it stayed until a year and a half, till 20 years ago when I met Randy. There are supplements that parents can give their ADD children.
Mm-hmm.
Omega-3s are important. Magnesium, D3, L-tyrosine can help mitigate some of the ADD activities.
Okay.
A high protein diet is good, and lots of vegetables. Sounds like a regular healthy diet, doesn't it?
Yep. Sounds good to me.
And some children's ADD is so bad, even with all those steps, that the parents are going to put them on some kind of medication.
Mm-hmm.
That breaks my heart, because I try and approach life from a natural perspective. But if the child goes on the meds and they become listless, or if it's not working, it's the wrong medication or it's the wrong dosage.
Good to know.
I urge parents, use that as a last-ditch effort.
Mm-hmm.
more exercise, more sleep. I don't know.
Well, and meds is becoming more and more common. And, you know, my dad's a doctor. He's a doctor in California. And so I'm very much, I appreciate that we have all these, you know, medicines at our disposal, but we really need to be careful. We need to be really careful. Just because they might be easy to get doesn't necessarily mean they're best for everyone. So yeah, every time you can do anything with one more exercise, with, I love how you talked about the supplements, the sleep, the kids, to help them to get to pay attention through these healthy ways. And I feel like, especially with kids, no matter if they have ADHD or not, the more we can just like teach them about being healthy, then the easier it'll be for them to be healthy when they're adults, when they get to decide what they eat and when they go to bed and things like that, because they're already used to that structure, they're already used to that lifestyle. And so, I mean, I remember when I went to college and I started eating Oreos like for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and I could tell I had no energy. I was always sleepy. I'm like, okay, there's a reason why my mom didn't feed me Oreos for every meal. I need to stop this. And so it was that much easier though to get back on track.
Oh, good.
How I felt as a kid. It was healthy because my parents were very healthy, and we always had to exercise and lots of vegetables and usually very little, if any, candy in the home. And so I remember my mom banned candy for a whole summer. And it was hard for me because I was in high school, but it was really good for us. It was
good
really
for
good.
your mom. See,
I
my
know,
mom.
good job.
Addictive personalities are one of the ADD traits, and my mom is a sugarholic. There's no way she could have banned sugar, because I think she would have just shriveled up and got into a catatonic fit. So I have a sugar addiction. I have now been 15 months without sugar.
Good for you, Kit.
Now, I should say 98%.
98%, yeah.
Close enough, huh?
That's really impressive, though, still. All right, awesome. Well, thank you for those tips on helping our child to focus and pay attention naturally. Yeah, that's awesome. And really keep their health in mind. All right. Well,
my third tip.
Yes.
If you're ready.
I am ready.
ADD has benefits and deficits, just as being a typical person has benefits and deficits. When I first started studying this, I was advised by other professionals, don't say the term ADD because people don't want to admit they have it. So, well, you have to talk about it. You have to uncloak that. But there's so much shame around it because parents haven't historically known how to support their child having this special gift. And I do see ADD as a gift. So the parents and the teachers, in trying to help the child single them out, you sit in the front of the room, you do this. So they're being pointed out and separated, and the child doesn't understand how that makes them special. So supporting them with that. I want to see more and more parents and teachers and people focus on the positives of the child, focus on their strengths. When you look at the people who have moved the world forward, culture, technology, everything forward, it's the ADDers. And it's the ADDers who weren't put into a box on the shelf or in the corner. It was the ADDers they were treated as quirky, but they were allowed to do their thing. So pay attention to the positives, support that. Don't focus on the negatives. And in that same line, you have dovetailed right into number 4, which is focus on strengths.
Okay.
And I'll let you summarize 3 if you want before I go on.
Yeah, well, I know that these all interconnect for sure, but I like what you said about erasing the shame from a diagnosis. I love that. I have personal experience with my son where he has autism, and we're getting him diagnosed with apraxia, which is very rare. And today I was on the phone with the insurance company, and it was a nightmare, like just dealing with these different things. But what I want to do, it's so important for me as a parent to get that diagnosis to make sure it's correct and I feel good about it, and make sure that I can get that diagnosis on his IEP, which we've talked about before in other podcasts and stuff, and get that diagnosis out there so that it can help teachers know how to help him. It can help people around him, doctors and therapists, know how to go about this, because every child is different. But as soon as you say, oh, my child has ADD, and you're happy with it, you're good, and you know that it doesn't define them, you know it doesn't cause shame, you know that you're proud of your son or your daughter, whatever the diagnosis, because that's just a small part of who they are, right? So I love that you talked about that.
It may be a big part of who they are. It's the big wonderful part of who they are.
There you go.
So, and one suggestion, if you're going to get your child diagnosed for ADD, also have them tested for being gifted. I saw the most amazing presentation this summer of a gifted child, 9 years old, speaking with the robot he built in an audience of adults.
Wow.
Talking about his giftedness and how his mother has had to find ways, carve paths for him to not hold him back. He's reading college level calculus books while at 6 years old, while most 6-year-olds are reading C.Run. Or
well, yeah, they're learning to read at 6 years old. I mean,
right, and they're reading simple things.
Yeah.
And bravo, but he's reading college calculus, like, oh. So it doesn't hurt to get both tested. You can be gifted without having ADD, and you can have ADD without being gifted, but you might as well test.
Yeah.
Find out what's the full picture that we're dealing with here.
Awesome. Okay. So 3 was mainly about like admit a diagnosis and erase the shame. And people aren't defined by a diagnosis, but it is who they are. And like how you said, it can be a big part of it, how they interact with people and who they are. It can be a very positive thing, and treat it as a positive thing. Like, this is a part of who you are, instead of being like, oh yeah, we don't talk about that. And that's the generations before. It was always, we don't talk about that. We take our child and put them in an institution or put them in a closet, like you said, in a box, because we're ashamed of, people don't know about it, and they're always scared about what they don't know, right? So let's talk about it and educate people so that we're not scared anymore.
Well, and when I was growing up, being left-handed was shameful, and teachers did their best to make children be right-handed.
So we have come a long way.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, but we've still got a long way to go. And so in your tip with 4, your 4th tip, you talked about
strengths.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that means watching your child, paying attention, listening to them to see what are their interests. Chances are their interests and strengths coincide. And this notion of, well, you should work on your weaknesses to make them strong, that may come with time, but that can also create shame, because I will never be tall. And if the strength is to be tall, it ain't going to happen. So let's help me learn to be good at being short, as a silly example, but it's actually applicable. And I know very well how to be short. If I need something on the top counter, I crawl onto, or on the top shelf, I crawl onto the counter, I get a ladder, or I ask my husband to come be tall and reach it for me. So, all right, that's silliness. But let them play with their strengths and develop them. See what they're strong at, see what they dislike. Don't make them do things they dislike, because chances are they'll dislike it even more. And that's strengthening a weakness in some ways. And magic happens when they build their strengths and follow their passions. And one passion may require that they learn something that they haven't liked before. But when it has an application and something they like, oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. So encourage the strengths.
Encourage the strengths. Okay, awesome. So I love what you said. You mentioned don't make them do something that they don't like. Can you give us an example of that? Because what kind of went through my little parenting brain was, okay, it's time to clean your room, but I don't want to clean my room, right?
And
That's not what you're talking about, right?
it's no, and they have to eat their vegetables.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
maybe
So,
you as the parent get to help them figure out ways of preparing vegetables so they're palatable.
there you go. So give us an example of a child that like something they might be interested in, something they might like, or something they might not like that you would suggest be totally okay to just kind of put to the side and don't make them do. What would be an example of something like that?
I'm thinking of a friend who was not physically fit or active.
Okay.
Didn't do sports, couldn't climb a rope. I know a girl who climbed the rope and then was stuck. She didn't know how to get down. And
No.
because I was active, I'm going, how did you get stuck on a rope? Well, because that's not her interest. And she was forced to do that. My friend who I was thinking about initially was given special dispensation to not do gym, I think, so that he didn't have to.
Oh, okay.
You might not like painting. Maybe you prefer weaving. You might not like calculus, but you love geometry or algebra. Or you like words and not numbers, or numbers and not words. So all of those are important in life, maybe. But
I don't know about algebra though, because if you ever need algebra, there's always an app for it. So my algebra never helped me in life.
I don't use my algebra. I use simple math, basic math.
I was good at it too. I was proud of my algebra, and I was like, now they have apps if you ever really actually need algebra, which is like twice in your life. But anyway, so that was a tangent.
Well, but those are important points to bring up, because parents are going to say, kids will say, I don't want to do my chores, or I don't want to eat vegetables, I don't want to do calculus. I still think those are important things to learn, but I would find a way of encouraging the child to explore it rather than forcing them to.
All right. I like that a lot.
I mean, there were some classes I was not good at and had to take and didn't get good grades in. Well, that produces shame. What good is that?
Yeah, especially a child with ADD or ADHD, for sure. I'm sure that as you encourage them and help them know how talented they are in a certain area that interests them, it'll increase the chances of them having better behavior to sit in a class they don't like, because they built that confidence in themselves. That's how I see it. As you encourage, they're more likely to follow suit and kind of enter our world with all these expectations. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. And I think that as you teach a child about his or her ADD, that when it comes to sitting still in a class, you'll have been developing routines or techniques to help them do that. Oh, I should have there are these things called fidget spinners.
Yes.
They're just
everyone who is a follower knows exactly what you're talking about. You don't have to show us.
Well, good. I have a favorite one though. I keep buying them, and it turns out I'm not a fidgeter, but I still have a collection. But that could be a really handy tool for somebody who needs to actively move. But that means also making sure the child has chance to run around between classes so that they aren't disruptive during class. But teaching them to sit still, because that is requirement in most schools or churches or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of times when sitting still is recommended.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard, even for me. It's hard.
Even you?
I'm not even diagnosed with anything, but I'm like, I feel like I've been in the car for 5 hours. Everyone needs to just come out and stretch. And I want to encourage parents to think about that. There are times when we feel like, oh man, I've been stuck in this car for way too long. And remember that feeling, and then think about your child, because your child might be feeling that way really fast.
Yeah.
So that feeling is real. It's not all in his head. It's real, and we need help them along and lead them along, right? So awesome.
Yeah.
You have one more tip for us?
I do.
What's our 5th tip?
And this isn't so much a tip as an awareness.
Okay, awareness.
Girls present differently than boys when it comes to ADD.
Okay.
ADD is genetic. If you had it as a child, you might not have it as an adult. But if you have it as an adult, you had it as a child.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So
And
thank you for sharing that. I'm learning a lot.
girls don't have ADD. Well, I'm a girl. I have it. My mom was a girl. She had it. Because it presents differently. It's underdiagnosed, but as they're learning to evaluate in different ways, they're seeing that it's equal number of girls and boys who have ADD.
That's very fascinating. Can you give maybe one example of a way it might show up in a girl?
Well, girls, I don't know if it's by genetics or training, but they tend to be quieter. So
Okay.
they're not the ones who fidget quite as much, or they fidget in a more acceptable way.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good time to bring in some of the traits, and we can kind of look at.
Yeah, let's go over some traits.
So I highlighted some of my favorite ones. ADDers tend to be really creative.
Okay, good.
They have difficulty following directions. They have difficulty staying organized. And this isn't always, but it's often. They can be, this is a fascinating one. They can be hypersensitive to their environment. That can mean to noises, to sights or light, to touch, so texture can be an issue. Chemicals. I'm chemically sensitive, and I actually think that's more an ADD characteristic than anything else. Taste, even to people's energy, they can be hypersensitive. And I think, though I'm not I don't know, are girls more sensitive than boys? Or boys sensitive and react differently to make it less obvious?
That's interesting. Yeah, good question.
Time is more fluid for ADDers. You hear that kids are can't focus. If they're not interested in the topic, they can't or don't. But if they're interested, they are hyper-focused. They won't hear you talking to them. They don't realize that their hour is up and they've now missed the bus or whatever.
Yeah.
Their brains are fast. They can put disparate pieces of a puzzle together, and we'll see pieces of the puzzle that others may not even see, but they put it together into the picture and go, well, here's the solution. While some people will be going, now let's see. Slot A goes into tab B, and the problem is solved by the ADD child. And I already mentioned that there tends to be an addiction tendency, personality. Mm-hmm. And that can be, and children hopefully won't have all of these, but sugar, which is really a drug. And this is a big one. The technology, the games, TV,
screen
movies, as they get older. Mm-hmm, yeah. Gambling, sex, those are all part of that addictive personality. So learning to deal with your ADD now will prevent painful issues down the road. ADD children are more easily bored. They struggle with follow-through. They procrastinate, but they're also very good at self-direction. So when they like something, they follow through on that, and that fits into the fluid time. So those are my high points. Now, that may not have helped us see the difference between boys and girls. Not being a parent, I don't intuitively understand the difference, but parents understand that girls approach life differently than boys. So they're going to approach their ADD differently. And I've listened to you talk about your children. Your daughter definitely presents differently than your boys.
Yes. And if you've met me, you've heard me talk about my children, right? I can't stop. I don't know what that deal is. But thank you for listing all those traits, because those are some good red flag things to just kind of keep in mind, as you have your children growing up, as they're little, look for these things and treat them as not just challenges, but as gifts, as opportunities. Because someone as I've been listening to you and as we've been talking, as I've been getting to know you, Kit, the more I realize that these children are so special and they are valuable to our community. We need them. We need them because one of them is going to find the cure of cancer. And so we need to really create the environment so that they can flourish, they can feel loved and accepted and understood, and then we can just build them up. And the next generation, there's not going to be a shame in a diagnosis. That's my, how will we just have that goal, right? That's a
Oh, I
great.
like that. Yeah. You want to hear a list of some of the people through the ages who either have ADD or are suspected of having had ADD, or are we out of time?
You know what? Tell us. We
Well,
have like 5 more minutes. 5 more
okay.
minutes, because I'm really interested to know about that.
All right. So as I'm listing the people who are making a big difference in our life on several levels.
Okay.
Richard Branson of Virgin Enterprises.
Okay.
Bill, and let me know if I need to expand on who these are. So Bill Gates, Paris Hilton, Elon Musk, Marietta Hartley, the actress, Jim Carrey, Lisa Ling, Karina Smirnoff, Henry Winkler and Howie Mandel, Simone Biles, and Justin Timberlake.
Who knew?
So, and then to go historically, I'll start at the back. Aristotle. I mean, think of the ways he changed our life. Benjamin Franklin, Picasso, Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein. I mean, he even plays the role very well with that crazy hair of his. Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, Charles Schwab of Charles Schwab Brokerage Firm, the JetBlue's Airway founder, David Neeleman, and Kinko's founder, Paul Orfalia. Those are just a few of the hundreds and hundreds of people who have impacted our lives, moved art, music, science, culture, society forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I love how you said it moves society forward, because I really do feel like these precious souls are given to us to be our children only for a short time. And we have a responsibility, because, you know, we decide to have kids, right? To really build the atmosphere, to have them blossom and grow, and to affect society in an amazing way that we probably can't even think about. You know, we can't even consider the possibilities and imagine all the good that will come from these amazing souls that we are raising, that we get to raise as invested parents. So we're just
these precious beings so they can blossom into whatever their purpose on this planet is.
Exactly. Whatever it is that they're meant to do, and they're going to know that probably even before parents do. So
well, if we let them.
Yeah, if we let them. Yeah, I love, and I just thought of an amazing quote, and I read the book I Am Malala. Do you know about Malala?
I do.
About her. So she says in that book about people will ask her father, and I cannot pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try. I don't have it with me, and I'm like, I will butcher it. So out of respect for his name, I'm not going to say it. But Malala's father gets asked, like, what is unique about your mentorship that just makes Malala the way she is, you know? And he says, it's not that I did something, it's what I didn't do. And he says, I didn't clip her wings. That is all.
Oh.
Isn't that an amazing quote?
Yes.
I remember as I was listening, because I actually read my audiobook. That's how I read my books. That's how I get anything done, right?
Yeah, it's all you have time for.
Always audiobook. And I remember just stopping, just kind of in awe. It's not what I did, it's what I didn't do. I didn't clip her wings. That is all. And I thought that was very powerful, especially for women, for a girl in the society that she was born in. That's absolutely amazing.
Yes.
It's mind-blowing that he has that much wisdom, but he does. And so let's just grab onto his wisdom and use that in our society for these children that we're raising, whether they have autism, whether they have ADD or ADHD, and just build them a better life, because they're going to take those reins. They're going to take control when they get older. And if we've not clipped their wings, then they're going to fly.
So, Holly, I think you can just erase this whole podcast and say, the summary of this is, don't clip their wings.
Don't clip their wings.
And
well, I just want to say how much I've enjoyed this podcast and this Facebook Live with you. I've learned a lot. I've been definitely inspired, and I know that many people are going to be inspired and learn and grow from just listening to this podcast and this Facebook Live. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. I also want to let people know that if you are watching this on Facebook Live, I have a link that I'm going to put in as soon as this is done. And the link goes straight to Kit Cassingham's coaching page. So you can go and learn a little bit more about her and the coaching that she offers. She's amazing. I know her personally. And what she does is she coaches entrepreneurs, and her goal is to take you from adequate to excellence. And she does an excellent job. And she knows firsthand all the stuff to do. And so if you're looking for someone to just give you a little bit more of the boost, the accountability, you know, the help that everyone needs as a coach, she's very personable, she's very non-judging, and she has a wealth of knowledge that you can pick her brain from. So I will put her link in here that will go to a landing page. Is that correct?
Yep.
A landing page so that you can contact her, you can ask her questions about what she offers, and get in touch with her. So thank you for this time that you spent with us, Kit. Do you have anything to say last before we end?
I will also give you a list of books that I've read that parents might find helpful.
Yeah.
And you can add that to your list as well.
That'd be very helpful. Yes, thank you. So I'll add that to the list. I'll add that to the post. And that'll be great.
Okay. Oh, I love what you're doing, Holly. Thank you very much for supporting children and parents.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will talk again, Kit. Thanks for joining us on Invest in Your Child.